Whole Foods Market Catering has flavors to wow your crowd. September 20th through October 17th, you can save 20% on your next catering order with promo code Fall Catering. All one word. From game day hosting to birthday parties, now's the time to dazzle guests with the chef-curated menu from Whole Foods Market with a build-your-own taco bar, grilled veggie platters, and even sushi. Visit shop.wfm.com and use promo code Fall Catering for 20% off today. Terms apply.
Empire.
Hello and welcome to another live stream edition of the John Keim Report. Here's Bram Weinstein, the voice of the Commanders. We're joining you. If you're watching us, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. You can find us there if you're listening to this later on Empire Media, AMPIRE. Always much appreciated when you tune in. You can always read my work on ESPN.com. I have a story up now on Sam Howell. They still have confidence in the young guy, and they should. So that's up on ESPN.com. There's also a story up on Josh Harris from my ESPN colleague, Ramona Shelburne. So you can go check that out as well. And don't forget the more programming notes later in the week. Thursday, I'll be back. I'm going to be talking to Logan Paulson. So you guys want to know what's up with the protection. I'm going to be talking to Logan about that and then keys and predictions for Friday. So, Bram, we were just talking about this. We're not going to spend a lot of time rehashing a 37-3 drubbing. But just a couple comments on what after watching the game again, watching the film, your initial take on that disaster.
It was really bad. I mean, like a lot of times when we do this after the fact and, whatever your feelings are, it's like the coaches like to say this, it's never as good as you thought it was. It's never as bad as you thought it was. This one was pretty bad. Like across the board in a lot of ways. I'm not going to dwell on how he did not play well. Like a couple of the interceptions were really bad decisions on his part, especially the pick in front of Gibson, where the free rusher came and he threw it right in the arms of a Bills player. And then obviously the pick six was just really bad, and I mean, the first one too, frankly, was just really bad decision. First one was bad. The protection was not great again. And then, honestly, though, I mean, my biggest takeaway, and I know nobody wants to really criticize EB, and I'm not sure that I'm going after EB here, but honestly, after a couple of weeks of tape, it looked like the Bills were sitting in their huddle. I mean, the more you sit there and watch what happened the other day, go watch the all 22 of this, they were all over them. So I while Hal needs to make some better decisions and the protection needs to be better, and maybe they should have run the ball more in hindsight, obviously, because Brian Robinson is really a lone bright spot, I think, offensively for them. I really feel like the Bills were on them. They had scouted them. And to me this week, I think a lot of self-scouting needs to be done. They were not fooled by very little. I mean, there was one drive, the one that ended up with the turnover on downs. There was some plays that really worked to their favor and seemed to have the Bills going the wrong way. But you just go look at the sacks, the interceptions, and while some of the decisions are bad, I got to tell you, John, they were all over it. They knew what was coming. And so I think this is something they got to go back to the drawing board here a little bit. There's some self-scouting that needs to be done offensively for sure.
Well, with Sam Howell too, the more you get for any young quarterback, the challenge is the more film that's out there, the more they get a read on what you do, where you want to go in certain situations or how you handle certain looks. And even though, the whole speeding up thing or, processing or getting through your reads quicker, that's going to take time because it's not like you see one defense. Now you got to figure it out. You're going to see something new pretty much every game. And the protection's I don't know that the protection has to give him more time because he needs more time. He's got to get through his reads quicker, but he also needs more time. And I said this the podcast yesterday, there's part of me that, I look at the way this line is constructed, and you have a line that's four new guys starting, or four starters at four positions. And then you have a young quarterback. It's a tough way to go. And it's not like you're talking about a first round pick here and a first round pick there. You're talking about a kind of a, veteran, okay line in front of and trying to come together in front of a rookie quarterback. If you put a veteran quarterback behind this group, it's going to look a lot different. but they needed to do a better job of constructing a line. I think that would give Howell a better chance for success because he needs that extra time. But then the decisions, Bram, and here's where I go back to the decision. So I think it was the Denver game. So and there was a similarity, and I was watching some of this again today. And this is where he's going to have to correct it, and it's where the mindset's going to change a little bit. And the more you do it, the more you learn. So in the Denver game, if you remember, he almost threw a pick. It was like 2nd down and long in the red zone. Linebacker almost makes a pick, right? And it's like, it's one that's like, oh, that's a really, really, really tough throw. And, you know, you need to be a little bit smart with the ball. And then we go ahead to last week and that first drive, that 3rd and 19, you didn't have to force it there. And that play, you know, the linebacker's job is to do one thing. You're dropping to depth as you're going back to the first down. So you're playing right there. And it's one where you're going to have to learn that in that situation, what you need to do is get points. It's 3rd and long, real long. Chances of picking that gain up, unless you're an Ohio State quarterback facing Notre Dame on the last drive, just my little plug there, then the chance of picking that up are really slim. So you need to be smarter with that. And so that's the thing. Those are the things that I'm looking for out of him moving forward is how do you handle that situation the next time?
Yeah.
And sometimes, though, it's really hard with him because, you know, even against Denver last week, you'd see these throws where it's like, that's just a really, really good throw. So it's there for him. We've seen it. It's just that some of those decisions he's going to have to improve. But anyway, let me ask you this too. What is your big concern moving forward? Now, having watched a few games, going forward, what are some things even coming out of this game that is a concern versus something you say, well, that was bad in this game, but I'm not concerned about it?
I mean, I was worried about this going into Denver, that like the simulated pressures really got them in the first week against Arizona. And I knew Denver would be very aggressive. I thought they handled it, a lot better against this particular team. They did not. This was by far the best defensive line they had faced of the three groups. The most experienced group across the board. Really, that's a contender. The reports of their demise are greatly exaggerated. I think you saw that. You can't have 5 turnovers against anybody, but against a team like that, the score is going to end up looking like that. And I think there were two things. Like, I really do feel like, I'm not absolving Hal. I agree with you. He made bad decisions. 3 of the 4 interceptions were bad decisions. One of them, his arm was hit and the ball didn't get there. But the other 3, Terrell Bernard points out to exactly who he's covering on this play, runs back to a spot, the ball's thrown there, and he makes a nice play. They tricked him on a protection where he threw to an outlet, and there's a corner standing there, John. There's a corner standing there waiting for the ball to come to him. The Bills were on this. And that's why, what concerned me here is, I do think some self-scouting needs to happen here to help him out a little bit, because if he's going to be predictable in the decisions that he's going to make, well, they're going to have to help him make some other decisions schematically on the chalkboard. So from that perspective, I think they need to help him out. And that's why I feel like this is a little more than just pointing at Hal, for sure. He also, and I think this doesn't need to be said, but seemed to need to be a little bit over the last couple of days. Anybody thought they were going 17-0 and he's like the next Tom Brady, needs to slow their roll a little bit here and understand that there's going to be some rough games with a young quarterback. Everybody has them. And he's had his, and hopefully they'll learn from this. The really tough part is we saw the defense that they played last night completely overwhelm an offensive line. And I'm really obviously concerned that that's their next opponent, that's who they're going to be playing. So can they fix everything in a week, or maybe do some things a little bit differently and get out of whatever tendencies they're showing here early and help Hal out? I'd like to see that. And I agree with, everybody. In hindsight, it's so easy to say they didn't run the ball enough, and that Brian Robinson has been their best asset on offense thus far, and they got away from it. So I would like to see a little bit more of him, because if there is a pop in his development, he's becoming more of a 2-cut running back, which is a really nice development here the last couple of weeks. So, he's becoming more of a productive player in bigger, longer runs, not just somebody you can rely on to make one cut go, get the most yardage out of a run. He's actually turned a couple into long ones. So that's really good. And then defensively, I thought Rivera put it really well the other day. And until I rewatched, I didn't totally, again, I wanted to watch too, but describing it as they got into their head a little bit.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, their defense unraveled a little bit. The rush lanes were so wide open by the middle of the second half. And honestly, I've gotten accustomed to seeing their defensive line bring consistent pressure. I did not see that over and over and over as the game moved along. And against someone like Allen, it's a death sentence against somebody like him. So this was not a great performance by the defensive line as a whole. I know nobody wants to hear criticisms of John Allen. I don't think it was his best game by far. Like, I don't think he had his best game. There was one situation where I'd have to ask the coaches, but like Chase Young did a twist around Allen. It didn't look like Allen was like ready for that. And so we're back to the communication stuff on the line. Are they working collaboratively with one another?
I did see one time where they definitely where Allen was playing off him like that.
I mean, I think we know that the linebackers in coverage can be taken advantage of. I think they were a little bit, and then, frankly, so I don't think the defense played particularly well. And, I'll get to this one really quickly. I might as well, like we could talk about Jahan Dotson for a moment, but Emmanuel Forbes had like 40% of the defensive snaps. I was surprised by that too. Like I was very surprised by that. So I don't know what your sense is of what's going on there with him.
Well, so part of it is they love Kendall Fuller in this system, first and foremost. He does a good job in the zone match, and they really like Benjamin St-Juste. And, and I also think, Bram, when they're going to like a bigger package, Emmanuel Forbes against the run, like we've seen him make a couple tackles, but it was not good against Denver last week, right? And so, that's an area of his game where if he gets it right, if he gets the right angle, it's going to be okay. But if the guy's squared up, it's a little bit tougher for him. But, I think the other part is like, I think the other two are probably just at better points in this system than Forbes is right now. And so I think that's a definite part of it. So they use a lot of the other day. It was a little bit more of the 3 safety packages than it was but he did, like he covered Diggs, and a couple of times, like the one time, I don't want to say he got beat by him because I don't think that's accurate. It was a scramble drill a couple of times. And, and then the first one, the quarterback makes a Hall of Fame play. I mean, so it's not, I don't blame him for a guy dropping a dime under duress. But I do think that's what it is. They really like Fuller. They really like St-Juste, and he's their third corner. But the thing that gets me on that, Bram, is your first 4 picks. None of them are starters. I mean, you have one guy. Forbes is good. Forbes is one of their top 3 corners. That's good, right?
Yep.
Quan Martin is now a special teams guy.
That's right.
Ricky Stromberg is a backup. Braden Daniels is a backup, and if all goes well, if they get better, then those two don't play this year. So that's, to me, is a hard part of this class. Like, I still like Forbes, I think, but when you want to see why isn't he playing more, I think that's it. But I like him. I think the guy still has a nose for the ball. I do think that, there's some areas in the run. If I'm another team, I'm going to test him in the run. And,
definitely,
but I don't know that that's a reason, but I do think they like Fuller. They like St-Juste. He's their third corner.
Wait, are you gaming? On a Chromebook?
Yep. It's got a high-res 120Hz display, plus this killer RGB keyboard. And I can access thousands of games anytime, anywhere.
Stop playing.
What?
Get out of here.
Huh?
Yeah, I want you to stop playing and get out of here so I can game on that Chromebook.
Got it.
Discover the ultimate cloud gaming machine, a new kind of Chromebook.
On October 5th, Loki is back in a brand new season.
Reunited. That's right.
The countdown is on.
I've been waiting.
Don't miss the return of Marvel's most watched Disney Plus show.
Loki. A little over the top, don't you think? I thought it was spot on.
His time is running out.
You better run!
Marvel Studios' Loki Season 2. New episodes streaming October 5th, only on Disney Plus.
The question was, will Terry and Dotson get more targets? Terry's actually been highly targeted the last couple of weeks. I'm not really concerned about him. I will say, though, if you go look at the air yardage to Terry, they're not trying him downfield much yet. I mean, there was the one in Denver, obviously, but even in this case, Terry had the second most targets, had got hit on every target, but everything was underneath with him. So there was really not much down the field at all. And with Jahan, I think I'm always like wondering about this with the amount of targets that they have. Someone gets lost in the shuffle. Jahan has here early in the season. He's not seeing a ton of targets. So I'm not concerned about it. I'm not worried about it, but you don't want to forget about someone like this. So
yeah, and I don't think they will. And there were a couple of times in the red zone where I felt like he did a good job getting himself open. Now, one of them was an incompletion, and he was open on the other side, but the safety, there's a nickel guy, was kind of in his area, but he went with Howell's eyes to the other side, so it makes Jahan look more open than I think he really was at the time of the play. And but even on the one, I think it was there was the 5-yarder to Cole Turner, Dotson's breaking open behind him. So I think this, I think there are a lot of slow developing plays in this offense, or longer developing plays. That's why you need a little bit more. I do see him still getting open for the most part, right? And so I do think he'll get stuff at a certain point. But here's the thing, everyone wants to run the ball more. When you run the ball more, that means some of these guys aren't going to get as many targets.
Yeah.
And someone's always going to shut out. But I do think Jahan's time will come.
I do.
Because it has to. Now, what I thought, Bram, though, is I thought we'd see a little bit more to get him on some crossers. We were getting him in space a little bit better to create opportunities after the catch, like we saw from him in the Dallas game last year. We haven't really seen that enough yet, to be honest.
Yeah. This question is there any surprise of his B-Rob's lack of involvement in the passing game after the play in Denver? Could his role grow with Gibson's fumbling issue? The second part of that question is something, do the coaches trust Gibson carrying the load or getting opportunity because of the fumbles? I'd have to ask them how they feel about that after 2 and 3 weeks. But the reality is Gibson is expected to be the guy who comes out of the backfield and gets opportunities as the running back. And I honestly, at this point, I still wouldn't get away from that. Him in space can be devastating if they can ever really unlock it. They had one play in Denver where you kind of saw it, but trust is going to become an issue here, obviously.
Well, the other part of the equation here is the pass protection. And I think Robinson is still a little bit inconsistent in that area compared to Gibson. And I know the other day it was, he kind of got blown up by a defensive end, but it's a defensive end. But I've seen him kind of be a little bit up and down with that. He's a good pass catcher. We saw that, but he brought up Robinson's involvement in the pass game in Denver. Gibson also had the big run too in passing on the screen. So although having said that, watching that Denver game, for some reason I was watching some more of that today, and there was on the screen to Robinson, Cosme cuts in front of Sadiq Charles and trips him up, and otherwise that may have been a touchdown. So anyway, but there's a couple things with that. Again, I think the pass pro is a part of the equation, and Gibson does a nice job with that. And they don't have anybody else I think is really a natural third down back. I think that's what Antonio would do best. But I would like to see Robinson carry the ball a little bit more. Now,
yeah, I think 10 was too low. This one got away from them in a lot of ways. I think it unraveled on them late. Brian had asked something about if something isn't done about the left and right tackles, then expect an injury. He goes, not if, but when. So it's a huge oversight here, bargain shopping for your offensive line. And if it doesn't work out, it is going to be I think it's an accurate criticism here. They have not put a lot of resources into this. I like Nick Gates. I thought that was the best pickup of the offseason, into a pretty good guard. I don't think this was his best game, but the first two were very good for him. I think Sadiq Charles in a row actually has been very good, and there's been limited bright spots from the other day, but I think Charles has been very good, very aggressive, can get to the second level. I like him. The tackles have been, they've had their moments here for sure. And, one of them was a free agent that they brought in. So I don't know what they're going to do about it. I don't know if there really is much to do about it, but clearly it's going to be an open criticism of the team if the offense doesn't start limiting some of these sacks that aren't on Hal, and there aren't as many turnovers. And, in the case of 3rd and goal at the 1, not being able to score with Brian Robinson, that's going to, the criticisms will continue to come for the team.
On that one too, they got moved back, and that was a problem. But, and even on the sacks, of those sacks, the only lineman who truly gave up one was Wiley. That was it. Now Gates on one pressure gave up pressure, and I kind of put it both on him and Howell. But having said that, the pockets haven't, you rarely get these clean pockets unless you're Josh Allen, because he had a lot of clean pockets. I thought Buffalo did a really good job with it. He took some 7-step drops. They used 6-7 man protections a lot. So there was a lot of that. But for Washington, the tackles, the only thing you can really try and do is kind of game plan around it. And this is one of the things that I wasn't sure about how the line would go, is how would the scheme impact it? So what do you do now? Now, Bieniemy, after 3 games, has to know, like, I mean, you're not in Kansas City anymore. So what do you do? Like, that's a really good offense. There are really good plays that are drawn up at times. And so, like, there's a lot of good things with this offense, but how is he going to adapt to what they're now showing? Is it a little bit more run? Is it the quick game? I thought was going to be a bigger deal, but at some point you still got to go down the field, right? And so can you afford those longer developing plays if you know that Howell may need an extra tick to get through that? And how are you going to coach that with him? And that's why I wanted to have Logan on for Thursday instead of just doing an Eagles preview, is just because I think the protection stuff is a big deal. And when I say protection, it's not just the line, it's all of them. Its receivers are included in that as well because of how they run their routes, where they're starting from, et cetera. Anyway, but yeah, I agree. Like, the problem with the tackles too, though, this is an off-season solution. They're going to have to, they can't really fix it until the off-season. Right now, you have to coach around it.
I mean, it's like,
you know, with a young quarterback.
In the spring, when I was sitting there on the sideline, this team screams that they're going to pick a tackle in the first round or buy one on the free agent market. You know, like, it was obvious back in the spring that this is something they were going to have to address. And hopefully they could figure it out and get a little bit better here. I'm not totally down on the interior part of this offensive line. I actually think that this is going to work out and be fine, with time, because I like Cosme, Gates, and Charles at this point. I mean, I'm okay with it. The tackles do need some help. And obviously, look, in this league where a couple mistakes flip games, they make too many of them, whether it's the quarterback holding the ball too long, making some bad decisions, the tackles getting beat. It's just a variety of things. And frankly, like, I don't want to let the defense off the hook here. Like, I think it unraveled on them too. And I would just reiterate what Rivera said, that I mean, I'm not going to, say, oh, Josh Allen got in their head, but he said it. And then after rewatching it, I got to tell you, like, it was kind of all over the map. The rush lanes were all over the map. And it, like, was kind of reminiscent of a couple of years ago when you'd watch them and Rivera was talking about, like, communication and maturity and things like that, and just kind of not being on the same page. And I'm just hoping it's, a bad game. We've seen this a million times. Like, they are 2-1 and they've always righted themselves in the past. And I'm hoping that that's going to happen again. The tough part is who they're playing this weekend. Like, that's the tough part.
They've also played well against them for the most part.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, that's the tough part here, like who they're playing. And, I've heard so much from the Eagles people about what happened last year on Monday Night Football that this thing's been earmarked the whole time as, like, revenge game for them, for in front of their fans. They feel like they owe them one for that. So I've been always concerned about this game on the schedule, no matter what. Plus, they're really good. And if you watch them last night, how they controlled the line of scrimmage off of what happened the other day, you're not going to feel very good about that matchup. I mean, obviously on Sunday, I mean, clearly protection and controlling the line of scrimmage, or doing your best to control the line of scrimmage, is going to be the game for the Washington offense, whether they can control that front. So I don't, and I don't feel overly confident going into it, but I will give Rivera this. And I think people should be reminded of this. They've started slow in a lot of seasons. They've always righted themselves right around this point or a couple weeks from now. So
usually a few weeks later.
Yeah, usually a few weeks later. And listen, hopefully they win one of the next two, and then they're 3-2. And if things kind of get shifted around and righted, then we'll be okay here. Like, again, you have this opportunity. It's a long year. It's a really long year, but that was a bad game. I mean, like, all the way around, there were a few people I thought performed pretty well, but overall on both sides of the ball, I don't really think you're not giving out a lot of helmet stickers this week. Like, you really aren't.
Cam Cheeseman's snap was really good.
Whole Foods Market Catering has flavors to wow your crowd. September 20th through October 17th, you can save 20% on your next catering order with promo code FALLCATERING. All one word. From game day hosting to birthday parties, now's the time to dazzle guests with the chef-curated menu from Whole Foods Market, with a build-your-own taco bar, grilled veggie platters, and even sushi. Visit shop.wfm.com and use promo code FALLCATERING for 20% off today. Terms apply.
This episode is brought to you by Columbia Sportswear. It's snowing again, and that wind chill is killer. But you're not worried about that because you shop the Omni Heat Infinity Collection. It's warmth perfected with tiny gold dots that reflect your body heat inside and protect you from the cold outside. No snow or chilly temps can stop you now. Go out anyway. Shop the Omni Heat Infinity Collection now at Columbia.com/infinity.
my concern for this week is now, and I agree the interior has mostly been pretty good. However, I felt like there were too many times where one of those guards or the center was getting moved back into Howell's lap. And it's like, so he's not getting hit on the play, but you're being impacted by a hand in your face. And he's sometimes making really good throws with that. So like, I'd like to see, I think that interior is going to have to really kind of, buck up this week, because you're facing some really good interior defensive linemen. And I think that's going to be a matchup to watch in this game. And they have to do, I think Cosme, I think he's going to have to anchor a little bit better than what he did, last week even.
This question from Jacob, why don't run Sam a little bit more, roll him out left to the right? I agree with the second part. I think he's very good on the move. I've been saying this from the get-go, that one of his real strengths is especially moving left. They can do that with him. And so this goes back to when we talk about the changes that need to be made, I do think the offensive play callers need to think about this a little bit and do some things to try to get the defense off balance, because they were sitting in Washington's huddle. The more you watch it, Buffalo was beyond over-prepared for what happened the other day, waiting for the mistakes to occur, and they did, and the whole thing unraveled on them. Well, so, I think this is an everybody thing, especially on the offensive side of the ball. They're going to have to make do with the offensive line and hopefully be better. Do they need to run the ball more because they're better at it? Maybe. Do they need to move Sam around a little bit more to try to keep things off kilter? I agree with that. Should they, target other people more often? Sure. In a perfect world, you do. But there's a lot to talk about here. I mean, there really is.
Well, so the whole rolling out thing, to me, it's changing the launch angle. So I don't mind the sprint rollouts. You can only do you can't do them very often, because you're cutting down. It's not even just half a field. It's about a third of the field. So it makes it really hard to then, if nothing's there, then you're screwed. So I'm not a huge, but I am a big fan of changing the launch angle. And you see how Kyle Shanahan would do that with a Brock Purdy. It's not just it's just like a little bit of a half roll. So maybe you're cutting it down a little bit, but you're changing the launch angle and you're giving the defensive lineman something different to look at. I like the RPOs. I feel like they use that a couple of times. And Robinson had some success running the ball off that. And I think that's a way that, maybe a few more of those. And but I do think that, maybe a boot or two. And and not every team is susceptible to that, but those are things that you can do to change the launch angle to give him a little bit more protection, give the defense a little bit more to think about, because really right now it doesn't look like they are. And the other thing is, I think the biggest hurdle right now for Sam is just seeing it and then trusting it and then getting rid of it, or just, it's that, okay, I see this, now I got to do this, now I can do this. And once he gets that boom, that free flowing, that's when I think we'll see a difference. Now, one of the things that he was knocked on for coming out of college was he held the ball a little bit too long. However, I think he's a smart kid, and I do think he'll learn from a lot of this stuff. It's just that people have to remember he is a young quarterback. And as much as people want it to be right now, it doesn't work like that. I mean, so I thought he had a lot of good moments in those first two games, and this last week was hard. So here we go. What's this next one, Bram?
Let's see. Are any adjustments being made to the defense being killed by the opposing quarterback running and scrambling to convert the third times and multiple times on third and long?
Haven't noticed that.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Rivera likes to talk about it, like rush lane discipline and contain. And I agree. And I'll take the example of the first one that he converted on the first drive, Allen. He broke contain. They didn't, as they like to put it, finish. They didn't tackle him. And there's just wide open space because the linebackers were covering people. So there's just wide open space. So, what do you want him to do? Not cover the people they're supposed to cover. So this is incumbent on the defensive line containing, and they're relying on the defensive line to do that. And in this case, with this particular quarterback, I don't want to go too crazy about it because he is who he is because of these things that he does. So I don't want to go, he makes plays like this.
He's got another one Sunday
on everybody. It's why he's in MVP conversations every single year. He's an elite player. But I agree in general, and I think Rivera would agree in general. This is the one that sticks with him all the time. He always brings this stuff up. That there there was problems here with the rush lane discipline and the coordination of it. And he constantly talks about they need to finish and wrap people up, and it just did not happen. And once Allen gets away, forget it. It's a lost cause.
Well, and they did and the rush discipline has always been an issue for them. And I do think you have guys up there who can make plays. And I think they're sometimes trying to make a play and you get out of your rush lane. Maybe you're going for a sack, whatever. So that makes it tougher. And, there are a couple of times where they did blitz. Cam Curl had a shot at Josh Allen on the touchdown run that Allen had. Cam Curl's got him. He just doesn't get him down. They did use a spy at times. But it really, to me, starts with the being able to contain him, because you're going to face, you have this week, you have Jalen Hurts, or you have Justin Fields. You're going to have a couple of games with Daniel Jones. And we've seen what, Daniel Jones is an MVP candidate whenever he plays this team, because he'll make 2 runs in those games where it's like, oh my gosh, but so they do have, I do think a lot of it starts with that discipline. And, and I think that's just something when you have 4 guys up front who, Deron Payne knows you can go get the quarterback. And sometimes when you've got this mindset, you get out of your lane a little bit, and that's all it takes, because we've seen it, and that's where they get hurt, but it usually comes back to that.
Yeah.
And the people who want to spy, they do use a spy in those cases. Like there were times that Cam Curl looked like he was using a spy. Same with Jamin Davis.
They were, yes.
Yeah. So, but it's Josh Allen is really good, and it's funny because I did ask Rivera as he was leaving yesterday, like, what can you do on that play? He's like, on that first play where he just flips it to Stephon Diggs, like, contain. You got to contain him.
Nothing. They wanted him in the pocket or moving to his left. And in the couple of times that they induced him to go to his left were the times he actually threw balls that were really dangerous. And he got lucky they weren't picked off. They just ended up being incompletions. So he gave them a couple of the type of plays that they were hoping to get. They just didn't induce him to do enough of it. Getting him moving to his left is where it is dangerous for him, because he will chuck it into traffic. And, unfortunately for Washington, these weren't balls that were close to being intercepted, but they were the type of passes they could be.
Correct.
When he's moving to his right, forget it with him. Like, he doesn't make mistakes moving to his right. So, once he was going that direction, it's close your eyes. How bad's it going to be?
So, Bram, let's close on this. I am curious. So, to me, like last week, a lot of the talk was about a measuring stick game, and what I said on the film review. If you listen, some of the stuff we're talking about now, pass rush and the sacks, I went over a film review podcast earlier today. So, if you really want to kind of postmortem on 2 key areas, go listen to that. But the measuring stick game, my point was, I'm kind of tired of hearing that. Get a measuring stick season. However, I think more than last week, to me, this is a little bit more of a the quote unquote measuring stick game, because it's going to show, like they've talked a lot about, hey, this is going to show who you are. So how do you feel they'll respond this week?
This is an early season week that I'm describing as, what are you going to do about it? Like, because that was one of the, worst performances I've seen them in a while, across the board, really, like more so on the offense, obviously, and Sam doing the things
Snap
he did
was good, Bram.
Not going to win if he does stuff like that. So he's got to clearly be better, and hopefully we can give the patience and the time to allow it to happen. But overall, I think there is what are you going to do about it? Like, are you going to do some things that maybe fool a very aggressive Philadelphia defense to make some plays to help your quarterback out? Can you protect a little bit better against a defensive line that's going to be more physical than the one you faced, and equally as dangerous with the ability that they have on the edge with some of the rushers? Like, are you going to do something about this? Are you defensively, are you going to be able to contain Hurts better? The last time I checked, this running back they had has over 300 yards rushing over the last 2 weeks. So let's see if our edge contained rush defense is going to be there. So this is really, regardless of the outcome, because obviously we should be concerned about who they're playing and where they're playing them and what happened last year and all the context of it. And then coming off of this thing, regardless of the outcome, it can't look like that again. Right. So you play them hard nosed and you come out on top. Incredible. You play a close game and you lose. There's nothing to be, ashamed about. What are you going to do about it though? Like, because it can't look like that again, because next thing you know, you're playing a game 3 days later and you're still back up on the chalkboard again. So this is a big week just to kind of show their mettle, shake it off, just forget it. No Taylor Swift pun on purpose there. Shake it off and show that that's not you. That's all. I mean, like, realistically, that's not, and I mean across the board, that's not you. And I'll be interested to see what it is, because honestly, like, the Rivera history here is they do shake these things off, and they may lose the next week, but they don't look like that again.
No.
So I'm hoping that that's the case up in Philadelphia.
I agree. They've been a resilient team for the last couple of years. I think, and we talked about this last week, they're resilient with a better quarterback than I think they've had. But this is where I really, really enjoy process. And so I'm curious, like if you're in the process of building a good team, a good organization, then you learn a lot about a guy like this, whether it's Sam Howell or the team in general, that I think you're going to learn a lot. And that's what I'm curious to see is what do we see? I mean, I still think Sam Howell's going to be a good quarterback. But he's got to go through a lot. He's got to go through this. It's all part of it. And so how does he come back? So I think that's going to be, as a reporter or somebody who likes to analyze this, I think it's going to be fun to watch. How does he respond as well? And not just, it's everybody, but I am particular in with him. But I have faith. I believe that this kid's going to handle his job well, and that's what you want. So we'll see.
The one thing I would say to this is, and this is important because you're part of the local media, but you're really part of the national media too. And I think you'll understand this and get what I'm saying. I think here's the really good thing that happened to them this week. One, the national media doesn't think much of them. Two, they thought Buffalo would beat them anyway. The score doesn't really flip them out like it would locally to all of us who are watching it really closely. And because of some of the results that happened on Sunday, Dallas losing to Arizona, Jacksonville getting blown out by Houston, 70 put up by Miami, Baltimore losing at home to the Colts, like we're 5th, 6th, 7th on the rundown and don't even make it. So the national media is not having this large conversation like we are. And I hope that they appreciate that. Now, on the other side of that, I'd like this team to be in a position where they earn that type of scrutiny and respect. So hopefully in the next, however many weeks, months, years, we're in there where a loss like this gets scrutinized like this. But the good news for them is this: no one's sitting around getting on them because they don't have time for it because of everybody else. Here's a chance for them to get themselves back in the national conversation, not just bounce back, but get back into a national conversation by going up there and ending that team's undefeated season for the second year in a row on their field. You go do something like that and you flip the script immediately. And what are we going to be talking about next Tuesday night? How great everything was, and this will all be forgotten, but it's on them. So that's what this week is. What are you going to do about it? Because you can't do anything about what's in the past. There's a tremendous amount that need to be changed. Show me you can do it.
And if they do it, no beer on the plane, at least none visible on Instagram, if you remember that. So anyways, Bram, thanks a lot for joining me. Thanks everybody for tuning in and joining us here. Again, I'll be back on Thursday with Logan Paulson talking about what's going on with protection, what can be done to help the protection, and Friday night, Saturday morning, keys and predictions for the Eagles game on Sunday. Thanks a lot for joining me, and talk to you next time.